And we are back. I am back for our 8th episode, I believe. How many
10th
episodes?
episode.
Our 10th episode, my night. I had to take a bit of a sabbatical last week, but I am back and back in full force. And we are going to be discussing with my dude, Wes. Wes, will you introduce yourself to the viewing audience?
What's up, guys? Name's Wes, clearly. UAB alum. I don't know if you can tell by the swag hanging around. Back in the mid-2000s. Man, I was trying to think earlier today how I got connected to the tavern, and the best I can come up with is the Wookiee. I think I just got drug in by him and have enjoyed the community ever since. And I'm also a huge Alabama fan. So,
yeah, not much to be a fan of down at UAB.
yeah, well, I don't know. First 10-win season in school history, first conference title.
I was just talking a little smack because we beat them, but no, yeah, they were actually some good competition and better than expected.
Absolutely. But yeah, he referenced there the Wookiee, which is the nameless, faceless admin of the group. He just kind of goes behind the scenes and does his own thing. He is the only admin to explicitly say, no, I'm not coming on the podcast. So you may not get to meet him, but he is a good dude. He is always an encouragement in the faith, always an encouragement. And you know, he's really a good testament to Florida fans. He brings the whole lot of you up. So,
he's the Tim Tebow of Florida fans.
He is the Tim Tebow of Florida fans, except that I don't know that he Tebows after touchdowns. But with all of that said, I think that takes care of all of the, housekeeping items, everything that we're getting into. You know us, you know me, James. JB will be joining us shortly, and Rob was unable to join us tonight. I don't know. I think that I set off a chain reaction and we'll never be the same again. But let's hope that I'm incorrect and that all will be well. Next week we'll all be here in full force. But with that said, let's get into a recap of last week. We have Utah and Washington duking it out for the Pac-12 championship, and none other than Washington is your Pac-12 champion. Which is, of course, the Group of Six conference. Washington wins that one 10-3 over Utah. NIU takes it over Buffalo, the MAC conference. I forget what conference they're in, but I regret not watching that game. Final there was 30-29. Alabama, of course, makes everybody sick with the way that they play Georgia and wins the SEC championship 35-28, losing to all of the fray, but he should be back in time for their first quote-unquote playoff game.
Not from what I heard. I heard he was going to have surgery and he was going to be out until next season.
Okay. Well, apparently...
I can see if I can confirm that.
I would love some confirmation there. I can't confirm what I said, so let's hope that you can and we'll get it right. Who knows? We're not historically good at that. Wes, do you have any news on the Tua ankle?
Yeah, he's having pretty much the same surgery or very similar to what Jalen had earlier this season. And about 2 weeks after Jalen had the surgery, y'all may remember pregame warm-ups before the LSU game, he was trying to jog.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw how bad that was. That was 2 weeks after. So if they're expecting Tua to be back in 2 weeks, that's what I'm expecting. So I don't expect him to be ready to practice. And so when it comes to preparation for Oklahoma, I don't know. Unless he's Superman and his surgeon, James Andrews, is a miracle worker, I don't see him coming back for the Oklahoma game. Maybe the national championship when we make it that far. But it's going to be rough.
Of all of the Alabama fans, I have heard that was probably the most subtle confidence that we've ever experienced when we make it there. At any rate, we have the 7th conference of the Group of 7. The ACC championship was played this past Saturday as well. Clemson beat Pittsburgh pretty thoroughly into the ground, 42-10, taking their crown for the ACC. Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship avenges its lone loss of the season against Texas. They win that one 39-27. I don't know that anybody saw that being a two-possession ball game, but it was fun nonetheless. Northwestern, though they had the hopes of everybody in the country, could not pull off the upset over Ohio State. Ohio State wins 45-24 to take the Big 10 championship. UCF, though they were down early, wins against Memphis in rather improbable fashion. We don't really know how they keep doing it. Probably voodoo witch magic. But they win their, 150th game in a row. So who knows? Maybe they'll claim another national championship this year, regardless of whether they beat LSU. Who knows? It'll be fun to see. Fresno State and Boise State play for the Mountain West title, and Boise State comes up just a little bit short. They lose 19-16 in overtime. And then we had some makeup games that were not necessarily championship games. Drake loses to Iowa State. I don't know who Drake is, but they played Iowa State very close. 27-24 was the final there. Iowa State wins. East Carolina gets obliterated by NC State, 58-3. Akron travels to Columbia, South Carolina, and loses 28-3. Virginia Tech beats Marshall 41-20. UAB wins their conference championship, the Conference USA title, over Mid-Tennessee State. Wes probably has some stuff to say about that, being as it was such a close game. I'm sure that there will be discussion sparked there. And then there were some games of little consequence. Stanford does beat Cal 23-13. And then for our last score, we have University of Louisiana at Lafayette losing to Appalachian State 30-19 for the Sun Belt Conference Championship. Gentlemen, anything to add? Any comments on the scores? Well, if not, then Wes, being a UAB graduate, tell us about that game and also tell us about the SEC Championship. What did you see?
So with the UAB game, I was completely impressed with the way they rebounded. For those who don't know, UAB played Middle Tennessee to end the season. Winner gets home field advantage, and they played that in Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee won 27-3. So UAB had to turn around a week later and play them in the same stadium for the conference title. And with a monster second quarter, 21 points, taking the lead, only to turn around and give it up in the second half, only to turn around and take it back with almost a last-minute field goal. Just the emotions, it was crazy to watch, and just a phenomenal to see UAB first conference championship. What in the world?
Geico helped me with renter's insurance too.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know
where that's coming from.
I think we are picking up some alien life forms, and this might go viral. Who knows?
Nice. Well, first conference championship and first 10-win season in school history, almost to the day 4 years after it was announced the football program was going away for good.
Right.
So, I mean, just huge weekend, huge season for UAB, just phenomenal overall. Love Bill Clark, what he's doing down there. Hope he stays forever, but he's probably headed to greener pastures at some point soon.
All right. And now tell us about the SEC championship game. We know you're an Alabama fan, and we promise not to hold it against you for the duration of the podcast, but we would like to hear your thoughts.
Well, I said it Saturday, and I think it resounds true now. I think Jalen Hurts is probably the biggest story of the college football season, just because of the way he lost the starting job last year. Mm-hmm. And coming in to sub for Tua, who, even without the injury, was not much more effective than Hurts was last year. So the complete 180, the reversal, the redemption, the whole 9 yards, I thought that was the big story. And really, I think Bama dodged a bullet. Another one. I don't see how in 2 games against Georgia, Alabama has led by only 1 minute and 4 seconds and is 2-0 in those games. I'm just in awe.
Okay. I've been seeing a lot of things talking about where Jalen might end up next season, talking about possible transfers. Has he said anything about transferring for sure? Do we know that that's happening, or is he going to stay at the Crimson Tide?
He hasn't said anything publicly that I'm aware of. I heard Saban, or I'm sorry, I didn't hear. I read an interview where Saban allegedly said that he had pretty much counseled him to find somewhere else to go where he could play, where he could start. But as far as destination, as far as confirmation, haven't heard anything of the sort just yet. Just a lot of rumor and speculation.
Okay. James, what were your takeaways from the SEC championship weekend?
Georgia is a lot tougher than I thought, and I definitely think they deserve to be in the Final Four. The only problem with that is nobody wants to see a rematch. I mean, as good as that game was, like, the replay value is pretty low. I did find it oddly satisfying and a little bit amusing that Tua ended up going out and Jalen came in to save him. The reverse of what happened last year. The only problem is this time Tua went out with an injury, whereas Jalen just got straight pulled last year from what I remember. So it was definitely a fun game to watch, a higher scoring game than I expected and a closer game than I expected. I'm really looking forward to seeing Georgia beat the crap out of Texas in their bowl game. Although I am a little bit wary of the fact that they very well may not care all that much since they kind of got snubbed by the playoff committee. And so I'm hoping they get up ready to play and don't just roll over because they don't care. As far as Alabama's concerned, they just reiterated why they are the best and why they continue to be the best. So that's pretty much all I've got for that.
All right, then. The best except for the punters, right?
Braidman Ray Guy Award winner. Yeah.
All right. Let's celebrate the punters. Beyond that, I would like to say there has been a fair bit of discussion surrounding that 4th team getting in. A lot of folks thought that Georgia deserved that 4th spot. A lot of folks thought that Ohio State deserved that 4th spot. And a lot of folks thought that Oklahoma deserved that 4th spot. So, you know what? Because there's only 3 of us here and because we have probably some time to kill, James, let's hear your best argument for each team getting in.
Well, best argument for each team getting in. I mean, I already made the case for Georgia, and I really thought that they should have made the 4th spot. But again, nobody wants a replay.
Well, there is also the difficulty of them being a 2-loss non-conference champ.
There is that as well. But again, Alabama's proven that they're the team to beat, and Georgia played them closer than anybody's played them all season. So, I mean, that's a strong case. And then on top of that, the team that Georgia lost to was a strong LSU team. Granted, LSU has kind of fallen off a little bit as the season has gone on, but they're still a solid team, and they were a solid team when Georgia played them. So, I'm sorry, I forgot who won that game. I was thinking it was Georgia. Georgia beat LSU, right?
No, LSU beat them by 20 or 21.
Wait, then didn't Georgia lose to Mizzou the following week?
No.
All right, I've looked at so many different schedules and results. Yeah, no. Either way, Georgia proved that they were the next best team whenever they played Alabama within a touchdown. But aside from that, Oklahoma, despite playing in the no defense league, they've got one of the most electric offenses, in all of the NCAA. And I believe in 5 of their last 6 games, they scored 40 or more points, I think it was. So they've definitely got a high-powered offense. They've proven that they don't really have a solid defense, but they've proven that their offense can outplay their defense. So I would almost go so far as to say that they have the best offense in the NCAA, and so that would be a solid reason to give them a shot and see how things play out. As for Ohio State, really their best case is their last 2 games. I mean, they lost by 3 scores or whatever it was to a 6-6 unranked Purdue. I mean, they weren't 6-6 at the time, but that's how they finished out. And then by the end of this, they played a lot of unranked teams really close. And then by the end of the season, they're beating number 4 ranked Michigan by 3 or 4 scores, whatever it was. So that, and then their conference championship. However, let's see, it was Northwestern, right?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. I mean, Northwestern stayed in step with them for almost the entire game. It wasn't really until the 4th quarter that Ohio State pulled away. Despite looking like they were getting away multiple times, Northwestern just fought right back and kept in step. And I think they're ranked number 22 right about now. So despite the final score, Northwestern put up a better fight than it looked like. And so I really think of those candidates, Ohio State is the weakest. I think Georgia's the strongest, Oklahoma's close behind, and then Ohio State's a good few steps behind.
All right. Wes, why does Georgia deserve to get into the playoff this year?
Well, I think the best case to make for Georgia is what James was talking about when it comes to right now the head and shoulders team, or what's considered the best team right now is Alabama, and Georgia has proven to be able to play them closer than anybody else. That, and looking at the downside of the other teams, right? Looking at Oklahoma, one of the worst defenses in the country overall, certainly the worst of the top 10 ranked teams. And then Ohio State, that glaring loss. Just looking at, you don't know which Ohio State team you're going to get. Is it going to be the one who beat number 4 Michigan by 3 or 4 scores, or is it going to be the one who lost to Purdue by 3 or 4 scores? So you don't really know there. I think a case can be made that Georgia is, as James said, the best of those 3. Whether or not the most deserving, I think it's not a very good case there.
Okay. And then why do the other 2 deserve this spot?
Well, Oklahoma's head and shoulders the best offense in the country, and I'd say that even as an Alabama fan and what Tua has been able to do, Kyler Murray has been able to do better than Tua almost across the board. Granted, you can say Tua hadn't played in the 4th quarter, but regardless, the stats are what the stats are. And Murray has better completion percentage, better yards per pass or yards per attempt stats. So even looking at the averages for attempts, not just the total yardage, Murray still is ahead of Tua. So regardless of what the defense is, you want to bring eyeballs to the television. You want to bring fireworks on the scoreboard. Oklahoma's the team to do it.
Right. Okay. And why does Ohio State deserve the 4th spot?
They don't. Not playing. Really, the way they closed the season out, dominating Michigan like they did. I mean, Urban Meyer getting the 7th straight win against Michigan in a row, closing out with a really dominant performance against a strong Northwestern team, albeit not a very high ranked, but still a pretty sneaky good team who legitimately won their division. Right. Those 2 quality wins right there at the end. I think if you were going to make a case for them, that would be it, that they're just on a roll right now.
Okay. Well, my best case for Georgia would be that they did play Alabama so closely. They came really one or two plays from winning the SEC championship, and they're looking really solid. Other than that, the argument really falls for Georgia, which is why I'm not of the opinion that Georgia deserved the fourth spot. Them being a two-loss team and not their conference champion, I think that hurts them considerably. So then we go to Oklahoma. Oklahoma has shown that they can compete with everybody on their schedule. Of the three, because of the terrible system that we have now, we're reduced to this. But because of their schedule, they were able to play everybody on their schedule, compete with everybody on their schedule. They were able to avenge their loss in the Big 12 championship. They showed that they could outscore people, that they could outlast people, that they could defensively win games against West Virginia. They showed that. So Oklahoma of the three looks the best, and I would say that they are the most deserving because they avenged that loss that they had in the Big 12 championship game, and obviously them being the Big 12 champions. And then you have Ohio State, which has the second strongest case for that number 4 spot, with their only one blemish on their resume, and really manhandling Michigan for the entirety of the second half of that game, which is insane. They came out and played the number 1 ranked defense in the country and made them look like a Big 12 defense in the second half. Like it was really almost sad to watch. And it's sad for me because I like Jim Harbaugh. I've always wanted him to excel. I've always wanted him to do good, but he never does. And then they go and prove that they really are the best team in the Big Ten by beating Northwestern and beating them convincingly, right? There was never a time in that game where you thought Northwestern is going to win this. Even if the score was closer than maybe it should have been, there was never a time when the game was really in doubt for Ohio State. And that's really to Urban Meyer's credit. He's been able to build a fantastic system there. He's been able to build a fantastic system wherever he's gone. And so I've got high praises for his coaching, but I think that Ohio State has the second strongest resume. Oklahoma has the strongest, and Georgia the weakest of the three that were in contention for that 4th spot. JB, what do you think is the strongest argument for each of the 3 teams who were in contention for that number 4 spot? Georgia, Ohio State, and Oklahoma.
First of all, I got to figure out. I don't understand why we're not bringing Notre Dame into this mix, because to me they have the weakest out of all 4 of those. Look at who they've played, man, and look at who they've beaten and who has almost beaten them, like Vandy and Ball State, those mighty Ball State, whatever they are, Cardinals, Redbirds is what it looks like. I don't know.
Yeah, Ball State Cardinal.
Ball State Cardinals, man. Woo, yeah. And then Pitt, Pitt went to the ACC championship. They had to lose 5 games on their way to the ACC championship. But, but Pitt's terrible. And they beat them by 5 points. And then USC, who is also terrible. They had 6 losses on the year, and they beat them by 7. The point is they play trash competition and squeak by with victories. So they have a horrible case. But, yes, they went undefeated. But, so did UCF. I'm sorry. If you're going to throw Notre Dame in there because they went undefeated, then throw UCF in there for crying out loud. They've played almost as good of a competition. Come on. But I say almost. Well,
to be fair, Notre Dame's strength of schedule wasn't like 95.
Yeah,
like UCF.
It was like 70. I don't remember what it was.
Which is better, and considerably better.
It is better, but they didn't beat the crap out of it. Most of their competition, like UCF did. But that's
fair. Neither did Arkansas.
But yeah, exactly. Everybody beat Arkansas. But anyway, going back to the topic at hand, I think that Notre Dame does. You compare them to Georgia. you say that Georgia has the weakest argument, but yeah, they lost. They got spanked by LSU. I know you know that you were watching. You enjoyed every minute of it, but look at every other game they played. They waxed the entire Eastern Division, and like everybody they faced, they just spanked them and made them like it. And they spanked Alabama for 52 minutes as well. Wes knows that. I mean, it was rough. And so, yeah, to go toe-to-toe with the beast like that and just destroy everybody else on the way there, and you had one hiccup in Death Valley, which happens. Ohio State had one hiccup in Purdue. Yeah. Purdue's nowhere near on the level of LSU. So,
right, but Georgia losing the conference championship is nowhere near the level of winning a conference championship.
Yeah, winning a trash conference championship, but it's okay. Michigan's overrated.
They still won their championship.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying they're a better team. They're not the most deserving, but Ohio State is definitely not the most deserving. Oklahoma, I'm glad that they made it. They beating Texas in that second chance. They lost the first time in a rivalry game, making them come to the. They ended up winning all their games, and they squeaked by on a few of them too, but they don't have a defense at all. So to do what they've done without a defense is pretty remarkable. Yeah, especially in crunch games against people like Texas, who does have a okay defense for the Big 12. So, yeah, I think Oklahoma probably is the most deserving because they went through their schedule. They lost a rivalry game. It was a close game, wasn't it? Texas and OU the first game?
Yeah, it was less than a touchdown. It was like 49-45, I believe.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. But anyway, they came back and finished their season off strong. I think they have a really good case. But Ohio State, man, it's just, again, when you're playing weak competition, like they beat two teams with 4 and 5 losses by less than a touchdown. Like, you don't play crappy teams like that and struggle with them. They almost lost to Maryland and Nebraska, and both of those teams finished with 4 and 5 wins. So I'm going to remind everyone that Texas also lost to Maryland. But anyway, yeah, I think Ohio State out of everyone probably has the weakest argument. They won their conference, but like I said, so did UCF. And Ohio State looked ugly doing it, and they beat an overrated Michigan team in their championship. And I'm not big on Ohio State. Never this year. The Purdue game shows how bad or how not elite Ohio State is. So you don't drop games like that when you're a top 4 team.
Well, disagree thoroughly, but we'll move on. Let's go ahead on to our question segment. Isn't that what's next? I'm out of the.
You miss 1 week, man, and everything goes out the window.
Yeah, everything is wonky. So let's go ahead.
It does need to mention that the week that you missed was the record longest episode that we've had.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we did need our moderator, Ashton, but I did think it was fitting that you missed the 7 overtime special edition. So
that should have been over in 1 overtime. But I would be okay with it if they reviewed the play, but they didn't. They swept it under the rug because they knew.
No, they had to review the play.
They did not review the play. The fumble?
Yeah. Fumble.
They did not.
I looked at it. I looked at it after the game, and it looked a lot less like a fumble than I thought it did during the game.
I mean, I'd be okay with that if they reviewed it, but they didn't. Anyway, Samuel Wallace asks, now that the year is over, I think it would be cool for y'all to do your end-of-season awards. Coach of the Year, Offensive and Defensive Players of the Year, Special Teams, Freshman of the Year, etc. I think this is a really good idea, but all of us are woefully unprepared for that. So let's do that next week if y'all are up for it.
I think that's a great idea.
We'll just have an award show for our show next week. Will Osgood asks, if UCF were in the SEC, would they make a bowl game? JB, go ahead and take that one.
No, I'm going to be Rob. Go on.
All right. James?
Said UCF in their bowl game what?
If UCF were in the SEC, would they go 6-6? Would they make a bowl?
Honestly, this year they very well might have, because we had Vanderbilt, who was not doing all that well. We had Tennessee that wasn't doing all that well. We had Auburn that would have been a toss-up. We had Arkansas. That's 4 conference games right there. 3 that are almost a guaranteed win, 1 that's iffy, and then you've got your 4 non-conference games that you could schedule. That's they very well could have scheduled cupcake games for their 4 non-conference games. That's 8 wins right there. That's a bowl plus some. So yeah, I think they very well could if they were in the SEC. If they were in the SEC West, that'd be a little bit harder. But if they were in the SEC, that would be possible. Yeah.
All right.
You just named 2 teams from the East and 2 teams from the West. So
like, I mean,
they're not necessarily going to play all 4. You could play all 4 of them, but you're not necessarily going to play all 4 of them.
The question was, could they if they were in the SEC? Not could they if they only played their own division in the SEC.
Just saying. In the East, yeah, I could see them going 6-6.
Yeah.
But
all right, Wes, what do you think?
I think I agree with James. I was thinking the same thing you said, JB, when he mentioned 2 teams from the East and 2 teams from the West. But no matter which division you're in, you've got those 2 teams. And depending on your non-conference schedule, if you run the table there, that's 6 wins. If you steal a game from Ole Miss in the West or South Carolina in the East, that's a bonus win. So I think it's very possible.
All right, and I'm pretty much in agreement with that. I think that people sleep on UCF. They're not a playoff team. In the current system, they're not a playoff team. They're not a team that can compete with Oklahoma and Alabama and Notre Dame. They're just not. But that doesn't mean that they're a trash team. They're not. I mean, this is a team that legitimately beat Auburn last year, and that's not to say that Auburn was, they were just out of it. They sleptwalked. I don't buy that. I think UCF is a good team. They're just not a playoff caliber team. So yeah, I think UCF would make a bowl game. I mean, we're asking them to go 6-6. Like 500 is not that difficult. I mean, we have teams like Ole Miss doing it or coming very, very close. So I think UCF is a more solid team than Ole Miss. Yeah, I think they make a bowl. Playoff expansion, 6, 8, or more. And how should the first round be set up? James, take it away.
I mean, I'm going to say what I said last time, 8-16. I mean, I definitely think that, on your average season, anybody in the top 10 could not necessarily go toe-to-toe with Alabama, but take Alabama for a ride, And so I think that's honestly the best way to give everyone a fair shake that play well and are actually a solid team that year. I mean, as it stands, 4 teams, it's essentially the BCS, I mean, and they really need an objective metric to decide who gets in. I mean, if you want to have some element of selection, okay, but I mean, it needs to be primarily based upon, an actual objective standard. That's where I stand. That's where I'll continue to stand until they try it and it doesn't work.
I hear you. All right, Wes, what do you think?
I think if you're going to expand the playoff, go big or go home. Let's just go 32 teams, make it a 10-game regular season, play your conference round robin, maybe or not round robin, but 8-9 games with a couple of non-conference and maybe even eliminate conference championship games just to make sure that, coaches are happy their players aren't playing too many. But yeah, make it big. Get all the conference champions in there. Get the at-large bids. Let's do this thing.
All right, no homo, but I love you, dog. Yeah. So the playoff should absolutely be 32 teams. I don't know why it isn't. Literally, the only reason that I can think that it isn't is because people are tied to their bowl games. Like I don't understand the hatred people have for the idea. At every other level in football, you have a playoff system whereby teams try to make the playoffs and they try to win more games to get a higher seeding, except in college football, where a loss in week 5 to Purdue means that you literally cannot be the national champion. Yeah, that's insane. Purdue is not that terrible a team, and Ohio State could compete with all of the teams in the field minus Alabama. Alabama's going to win it all, and nobody else has a prayer. But Ohio State could legitimately be the second best team in the country, and we'll never know because, like James said, there is no objective metric used. It's just, the eye test. The committee favors these 4 teams to win it all, and so they get invited. It's not a college football playoff. It's a college football invitational, and it's only the 4 teams which the committee most favors to win it all. And that's not even acknowledging the fact that the committee could be wrong. No, the committee knows all, sees all, and is all. But if you go to the NFL, you have how many teams get in? 8, 10, 12?
I think it's 12.
I think 12 teams get in.
Yeah.
12 teams get into the playoffs out of a field of 32. That's 1/3 of the teams in the NFL getting a playoff bid. If you go to high school football, you have 60 some odd teams in each classification, and the top 32 get seeded in the playoffs. That's half the field getting in. And in college football, we have 4 out of 130. That's insane. If we go to a 32-team bracket, it is still the most exclusive playoff in all of football, and we actually have an objective standard by which to crown a true champion so that we don't have UCF going off claiming a fake national title, and we can shut up people who actually have legitimate gripes, such as Penn State a few years ago, or Ohio State this year, or a conference champion last year. I mean, Alabama gets in over a team that won their conference. I don't understand the subjective criteria. They say, oh, we want the 4 best, not the 4 most deserving. Well, how do you determine that? How do you determine the 4 best? You don't actually want the 4 best. You want the 4 best looking teams. And we end up punishing teams for wins. They win, but it doesn't look as good as this team's win. So their win doesn't mean as much. And so we're punishing teams for winning. Auburn is punished last year for beating Alabama and going to the SEC championship game. Because if they abstain from the SEC championship game, they get in. They're one of the top 4 teams in the country. They go in skating from an Alabama victory, and instead Alabama gets in ahead of them because the committee. There's no objective standard. Let's go to 32 teams. It would still be the most exclusive playoff in all of football. The first round looks like you have 16 games, and the 16 highest seeded teams get a home field advantage, and home field is decided by seeding. The higher seeded team gets the home field, unless some low seed team knocks off a higher seeded team, and then it would go from there. I mean, it would be very similar to high school football. I don't understand why this is such a hard concept. And if you want all of your bowl games, you say, oh, well, we would lose all of this money from bowl games. You could have the PlayStation first round of the playoffs, or you could have the PlayStation second round game between these 2 teams. You could still have sponsors for each game. And to have a 32-team field means to have something like 30 games. So you actually don't end up sacrificing that many bowls. You don't end up sacrificing that much money. And it makes more sense. Anyway, rant over. JB, what have you got to say?
I've been pretty consistent on this for a long time. I've said the same thing the last time we discussed it on here, the last couple of times. and in the 5PL, I've said it as well too. I think we should just go to 8, man. I like the fact that the regular season is so like every game counts, and you're watching every game on the edge of your seat because you know if they lose, it's going to destroy the entire system and they're going to fall to number 10 or whatever. I mean, that's what I love about college football, man. It's the rush of knowing how important every game is. And not that it's mattered for me for a while since 2011, but yeah, whatever. So I just coughed into my mic. Sorry, guys. But I like 8 teams, and the 8 teams that I'm talking about the 5 Power 5 conference champions, and they get in automatic bid. I don't care if you've got 1 loss or 4 losses, you win your conference and you're in one of the Power 5 conferences, you're in. And then you're going to take the highest ranked group of 5 school, which this year it would be UCF, and put them in. They get an automatic bid. I don't care if they're not that good, because a lot of years the group of 5 doesn't have a caliber like a UCF or a Boise State caliber team. And you know what? They'll go in there and get their brains beaten out by an Alabama or an Ohio State, and it is what it is. But giving them a seat at the table and letting them get there and have a shot is important. And I think it would create a lot of you get a lot more viewership because people in those areas, Pac-12 hasn't been in there in a couple of years, have they? And
I think Oregon was in the first one, 2014, and I think that was it. I could be wrong, though.
I think Washington got in there once, and they got waxed in the first round, and so they haven't put them back in since then. So it's like, by them. And then the other 2 would go to will be at-large bids. You can use committee if you want to. If you want to keep your buddy system and use some kind, because they're not going to get rid of that, guys. Come on, don't even think about. They're not going to get rid of the subjectivity of college football, because college football has been subjective since the beginning of time. It's getting less and less subjective with the different things that they've done, like. With the BCS, they started using the computer rankings, and which I like. I wish the committee would use the computer rankings. I think that's a good metric, a good objective metric. I'd like to see that thrown in there too. Just getting the bringing back the computers, man.
Right.
I like a hybrid between objectivity and subjectivity in my playoff. That's what I'm saying there. So.
If I might interject, I went to the CFP wiki page just to check out and see historically who the Final Fours were. And at the top, it's got a bunch of bullet points with facts. And it's got the most playoff appearances, Alabama with 5. Most playoff wins, Alabama with 5. Most playoff championships, Alabama with 2. Conference with most appearances, SEC with 6. Conference with most wins, SEC with 6. Conference with most championships, SEC with 2. So I just reading that, it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, thinking about all the haters getting mad about SEC bias. It's like, win some games, man. That'll change.
That is true. A little bit of pushback on JB's comments there. Number one, let's look at Ohio State's season. They lose to Purdue in pretty dramatic fashion, and it's an ugly loss. But they rally and they win all of their games since then, and they do so as best as is humanly possible. They rally around their coach. They rally around everything. They beat the number 4 team in the country with the number 1 ranked defense. They go and win the Big Ten championship, and it's all for naught because they lost that game to Purdue. If they had a crystal ball and they could see what lay in store, what incentive is there to play after you lose that game to Purdue? So let's say that Alabama or LSU or whoever next season has an ugly loss like that to, say, an Arkansas, an Ole Miss, a team that they should beat. what incentive is there to keep playing? Because even if you win out, even if you win the conference, even if you do everything you're supposed to do, that loss ends your season. Your season's done. Best case scenario, you're the champions of the Fiesta Bowl. Like, great job, man. Fiesta Bowl. Should regular season games matter that much? I mean, we're talking about a season being over in week 5. That's unbelievable. Another thing, you saying that subjectivity is just a part of college football. Well, that does not defend subjectivity. The Roman Catholic Church has always been a part of, church life. That does not defend the Roman Catholic Church. It's still an unchristian institution, right? The fact that it's always been this way doesn't mean it should be that way, and it should be reformed, for lack of a better word. They should get rid of the committee, get rid of voting, get rid of all of that, and actually have an objective metric whereby to seed the teams who get in. And like you say, the 5 Power 5 conferences, cool, that's objective. You have the best group of 5 team, cool, also objective. You said the highest ranked. So
that's not objective. The best group of 5 team is not objective.
That is objective. You said the highest ranked. You said bring back the computers. So the highest ranked BCS group of 5 team would be UCF.
Okay.
So that is objectivity. And then you said 2 at-large bids, the next 2 teams, right? That should also be objective. That shouldn't be up to vote, rather. This college football should not be a democracy, right? My ability to win a national championship should not be a democratic vote. It should be my performance on the field, and if I've done enough, I should be able to have a seat at the table, right? For Ohio State to lose that game and then bounce back, win every game from that point on, beat all of the teams that they beat, even though it was not beautiful. I mean, that says a lot more about that team than, Alabama not seeing any adversity until the SEC championship game, right? So I think that, if anything, it's a stronger argument for Ohio State. And their season was basically over. So if they have a crystal ball and they see what's happening at the end of the season after that Purdue loss, let's say they see into the future and they know that they won't get in no matter what incentive do they have to play?
Talking to me? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you're bashing a BCS. Not a BCS, but a
CFP.
No, you're bashing a New York Six Bowl when you're talking about the Fiesta Bowl. I mean, those the conferences get a lot of money for the Fiesta Bowl, man. Like, I'm sorry, that's not a bad bowl to be in.
Right, but it doesn't mean anything.
None of the bowls mean anything. They mean money for your school, dude. So poor kids can have scholarships, man. I mean, like, come on, dude. And
which could be the same thing as the playoff, but no.
Well, let's go with the subjectivity versus objectivity, dude. You are kidding yourself if you think that we could ever be 100% objective. Even using computer rankings, somebody had to write that software, and they think that this metric is better than this metric, or this metric is better than that metric, to come up with the best teams. You're still being subjective. You have to write that software, and you're using judgment calls when you do that. So you can't get rid of subjectivity in college football.
That is still
but you can lower it to a reasonable level. You can lower it to a reasonable level.
And that is way less subjective than putting her to a vote.
Uh-oh. I think we lost JB.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any movement.
All right.
All right. Well, that means that I win, and
by default, you're the last man standing.
Yep. At any rate, I do think that my argument is pretty strong there. I would have loved to have heard what he had to say there, but the show must go on, and when he comes back, we can finish the discussion. Let's go on to bowl games. Oh
boy.
So the next question that we were asked was, what is the SEC's record in bowl games this year? But I think an easier way to answer that would be to just go ahead and make our picks. So, James, because JB has,
abandoned us
over or something, will you kick us off? We have as our first pick Baylor versus Vanderbilt. Both teams are 6-6, and this is the Academy Sports and Outdoors Texas Bowl, which is.
I just made my picks today. Let me go back to my list. I did it very scientifically, looked at the S&P Plus and what they had, and then I looked at their records and made a judgment call for myself. But you said Baylor and Vandy?
The Baylor and Vandy.
I've got Vandy in this one. I mean, I couldn't eye test it myself. I had to go and look at the stats, so I couldn't tell you for sure, but Vandy outweighed them. So,
okay, Wes, who have you got in this one? Baylor and Vandy.
I like Vandy too. I think they've shown some great promise throughout the season, pushing Notre Dame to the brink earlier in the year was big, and I don't think any team really gets very well motivated when they stay home for a bowl game. And if I remember correctly, Baylor's not too terribly far from Houston. I'm not good with Texas.
It's about 3 hours away.
Yeah, it's right next door as far as Texas is concerned. So I don't think they're going to be up for it.
Okay. I also have Vandy in this one. Of course, I'm a bit of an SEC homer. So, I'm always up for Vandy proving the SEC's superiority. Next, we have in the very prestigious Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl, Auburn and Purdue. Auburn is favored by 4. But, James, who have you got in this one?
Yeah, I think I had Auburn in this one. Let me double check. Yes, I do have Auburn for this one.
Okay. Wes?
I like Auburn too, beating Purdue, who beat the Big Ten champion. So Auburn gets to crown themselves the Big Ten champion.
All right. I have Purdue in this one. Auburn couldn't beat the American Athletic champion last year, so I don't see them beating the team that beat the Big Ten champion either. Purdue is one of those sneaky good teams, like you were talking about earlier with Northwestern. They're not a bad team. Their record is 6-6, which isn't great, but they have some pretty solid wins, not the least of which being over Ohio State in convincing fashion at Ohio State. And they've proven that they can compete with anybody. So I think Auburn comes in unmotivated, unready to play, and Purdue treats this like their second Super Bowl of the season, and they win this one. Before we move on, I would like to say that JB's computer died. So it's not that he gave up the argument. He lost by default because his computer gave up on him. His computer recognized the superiority of my argument, and so we move on. Florida plays Michigan in the Peach Bowl. Who have you gentlemen got?
I've got Florida in this one. I was looking at it, and after the way, I still, despite how they've been playing and their uptick in performance, I still think Ohio State is overrated, and thus I also believe that Michigan was overrated. And I think Florida's put up some stiff competition against some of the best teams in the country this year. So I'm going with Florida on this one.
All right. Wes, what have you got to say?
Before I say that, though, there was one thing that I wanted to go back to at the Purdue game. I don't know if y'all heard, but Jeff Brom declined an offer from Louisville, his alma mater, and where everybody in his family played. So Purdue may be extra jazzed to play for their coach in the bowl game. I'm still going with Auburn in that one, though. But the Peach Bowl, man, I don't know. Michigan, the way they ended the season, I think they could come out flat and disappointed that they didn't make the playoff. And Florida, well ahead of schedule with Dan Mullen as coach. I think Florida's got a lot more to play for. I think they've got a lot more motivation. The stadium's more familiar. It's in the Southeast. It's right there in Georgia. But I don't know. I think Michigan steals it. I hate to say it.
All right. Well, I have Florida in this one. I think it's going to be a very close game, but Jim Harbaugh has historically at Michigan struggled winning the big one. He can't beat Ohio State. He struggles against Michigan State when Michigan State is good. It's like the bigger the stage, the more hiccups there are in Michigan's game. And I don't know necessarily that Florida is the better team. I just don't think that Michigan is ever prepared to play the big games. So I've got Florida in this one, and Florida close. I think that Dan Mullen has them kids ready to play, and it's a defensive battle, which I'll be super excited to see. I think the teams are very similar, but Florida in a close one. South Carolina goes to play Virginia in the, get this, Belk Bowl. So, James, let's hear your prediction. Who wins, South Carolina or Virginia?
Got bad memories of the Belk Bowl. I'm pretty sure that's the one that Wake Forest beat us in 2014. But in this one, that was it was a tough choice, but I went with South Carolina. Again, I hadn't seen too much out of either of them. I just knew South Carolina wasn't doing great this season, and so I did some digging, looked at their schedules, who I thought were the stronger teams that they'd played and how they'd played, and ultimately ended up going with the SEC team. So,
all right, Wes, who have you got?
Same here. I think South Carolina is just a little bit better. Looking at the way Virginia finished the season, losing to Virginia Tech like they did, it was a coin flip for me, so I'm going to lean SEC.
All right. I'm also going to agree. I think that both of these teams are pretty disappointing this season. There's not a whole lot of upside to either team this season. They have some promising talent coming up. There's a lot to be excited for South Carolina. I'm wanting to say there's stuff to be excited for Virginia, but neither team is very strong this year, and I think they're fairly equal. I think South Carolina edges it out in the end, though, just because I'm an SEC homer. And, I don't really have a reason to pick Virginia. So, South Carolina it is. We have now we'll save that one for last. We have now Missouri playing Oklahoma State in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl. James, who you got in the AutoZone Liberty Bowl?
I think I ended up going with Oklahoma State, but I'm looking for my answer here. I'm not seeing it on the list. What number was it? There we go. Number 13, Oklahoma State. Yeah, I went ahead and picked Oklahoma State. Granted, they were playing in the Big 12, so they weren't playing quite as stiff competition. They did perform well. They ended up beating Texas. They played Oklahoma close. They showed themselves to be some of the top competition, despite letting a couple games go closer than they should have and losing one or two games that they should have won. Just based on how Mizzou has been doing this season, granted they did put up a fight and played Kentucky to 1 point.
In the best game of the season. That was the most fun game. My goodness. Anyway,
best game of the season. After Texas A&M versus LSU, 7 overtime thriller was just named 2018 game of the year. So
right, which should have been an overtime. But Missouri was a thriller.
Yeah, it did look like a great game. I didn't have the pleasure of watching it. I did watch a couple of the highlights, but ultimately, in spite of their flashes of brilliance, I think Oklahoma State played a little bit more consistent and had more big wins than Mizzou did. So I'm going with Oklahoma State for this one.
All right, Wes, who you got?
I'm gonna play the part of SEC homer again. I think this is gonna be Drew Lock's going out party. He's gonna show out. I think that really the big winner is going to be fans of lots of points, because I think both of them are going to put a lot of points on the board. But I think Missouri's defense is sneaky good, and they get just enough stops, or maybe a key stop in the fourth quarter to win, maybe like a 52-48 game or something like that.
Okay, I'm agreeing that there will be a lot of points. I don't think that it's going to be a terribly close game. I think that Missouri wins fairly handily. Like you say, Drew Lock's going away party, and I think the defense steps it up. So I got Missouri by 2 scores. Next, we have NC State playing James's very own Texas A&M Aggies in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. James, who have you got in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl?
I've got Texas A&M, and I've got them by 21 points. Only Aggies will get that. But yeah, no, I've got Texas A&M in that one. Honestly, like NC who, I mean, yeah, they're 9-3, but they're 9-3 in the ACC, and I mean, I don't even think they made the ACC championship. It was Clemson versus Pitt, so yeah, I mean, I was royally disappointed. It's like, give us Texas and then give Georgia somebody that can actually play them, like that's all I've got. But I expect a solid game from Texas A&M if they, I mean, I say if they decide to get up and play, but I mean, the way that Jimbo's been lighting a fire under those guys and the way that they just have stopped rolling over like they did in the years of Kevin Sumlin, hopefully this trend continues.
Okay. Wes, who have you got in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl?
I like Texas A&M. I think this is one of the bigger mismatches of the bowl pairings in the SEC. Like James said, even though the records may be different, NC State and the ACC, that 9-3 record doesn't mean a thing. Texas A&M is going to run wild.
All right. Well, I personally am of the opinion that y'all are going to be a little overconfident here. I do have Texas A&M winning this one, but I think it's much closer than y'all are anticipating. I'm saying it's a 8 to 10 point game. I don't think that the game is necessarily ever in doubt, but I think it's closer than anticipated. So I'm going to say Texas A&M by 8 to 10 points. Low end of 2 scores. Next, we have Mississippi State playing Iowa in the Outback Bowl. James, who you got?
I've got Mississippi State in this one. Was it Iowa or Iowa State?
Iowa.
Okay. But yeah, no, I've definitely got Mississippi State in this one. I think that one's probably about as much of a mismatch as Texas A&M NC State. Mississippi State has proven that they've got one of the elite defenses in the league. I mean, a solid defense does not a team make. They got to be well-rounded, and Nick Fitzgerald is not, your premier passer. Although he is a little bowling ball and does make his way around on the ground. But yeah, I really think Mississippi State's gonna take this one. They're gonna pop Iowa pretty good, and I don't expect it to be necessarily close.
All right. Wes, who have you got? Mississippi State and Iowa.
I hate to keep agreeing with James like it. I think this is another mismatch. Moorhead being just a year removed from the Penn State sideline. I think he was the OC there. So he's got some experience with Iowa and knows a little bit of inside baseball there. And Nick Fitzgerald is going to be the X factor. I think Iowa's not going to be able to stop him.
All right. Well, I disagree. I don't think that this is a mismatch necessarily. I think this is going to be one of the more fun matchups of the bowl season. Mississippi State and Iowa, I think that they match up fairly well, and I do think that Nick Fitzgerald is the X factor because he will throw Iowa 3 touchdown passes. So I've got Iowa by a score or 2. Iowa wins this one. JB, we're going to get you coming in after all of the picks have been made, so I can keep up with who you picked and who you hadn't, if that's all right with you.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, then we'll continue as we're going. James, who you got? LSU plays UCF in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl.
LSU shuts the heck up out of UCF. This LSU's got a solid defense and a fair offense. Offense isn't intensely great, but it's not bad either. And I think that the defense is too much for UCF to overcome.
Well, we know the offense is capable of putting up 72. So, Wes.
Yeah, in 7 overtimes, man. That was almost twice the length of regulation, and we were starting on the 25 for 7 of those scores. So I mean, it's not exactly a fair metric.
I'm just messing with you. Wes, who you got?
Yeah.
LSU plays UCF.
I think LSU's still resting from that game, and they will be well rested by the time they play UCF, and they will put an end to the nation's longest winning streak.
Okay. I am tentatively agreeing. I think that LSU can win this game and should win this game. I'm not convinced that they will, if that makes sense. LSU has a tendency to let me down in bowl games, and so they lost to Notre Dame last year. They lost to Clemson a few years ago. Every time they do well in the season, they lose the bowl game. So, they could win. Screw it. I'm saying LSU by 4. LSU by 4. I think that it's going to be a close game because why not? James, who have you got in the – hold on, let me see. The VRBO Citrus Bowl played between Kentucky and Penn State.
I've got Kentucky in this one. I mean, I've ragged on them all year, but, I mean, at the same time, I recognize that, they're not a bad team. I just think they were way overhyped. And but I think right now sitting at about number 14 is probably a pretty solid ranking for them. I did a little digging into Penn State's record, took a look at who they played and whatnot. And just based on the way that Kentucky's performed in the SEC this year, I think Kentucky's going to pull this one out, probably by about a score or so.
All right, Wes, how about you? Who have you got winning this one?
I get to disagree with James now. I think Trace McSorley is going to be the X factor in this one because Kentucky down the stretch, they did not use Snell, I think, the way that they should have, and I think that hurt them. And I think for whatever reason, they're not going to get up for it. They're not going to be able to finish the game as good as they are, as talented as they are, as much as I want them to win. And this will be the second Big Ten SEC showdown with ranked teams in Big Ten. I'm calling it 2-0 in those games.
Well, that is disappointing to say the least.
Yeah.
But understandable. I think that Penn State has a legitimate shot at winning this one. I think that Kentucky does pull off the upset, though. And that because I think that this is Kentucky's best season in forever, and they're motivated. So I think that Kentucky comes out and they come to play, and they come in with the grit that won them the Missouri game, the grit that won them the game in the swamp, the grit that had them in contention for the SEC title. So I say Kentucky wins this one by a score. And now comes James's favorite matchup of the bowl season. We have Texas versus Georgia in the All-State Sugar Bowl. James, who have you got?
I mean, obviously, I've got Georgia. I mean, they played Alabama within a touchdown. Texas struggled to top Oklahoma, and the one time in the regular season, they did it by 1 point, and they only did it by outlasting them, just score for score for score for score. I do think Sam Ehlinger is a solid quarterback. I think he's going to do well the remainder of his time in college football, and he's going to do well when he goes to the NFL. But as a team, I don't think they hold a candle to Georgia. And I think Georgia's solid defense and smash-mouth run game is just going to stuff the ball down their throats, and it's going to be absolutely glorious. I'm hoping that they make it 4 scores. I'm not counting on it. I'm thinking maybe 17 to 24 points. I mean, I guess 24 points would technically be 4 scores. But I'd like for a 28-point win or more. I don't see that happening, but it'd be nice.
A 24-point game is a 3-score game.
Do what?
A 24-point game is a 3-score game.
Just barely. Just barely.
Right.
I mean,
that's a 3-score game. Like.
All right. Yeah. All right. We can call it 3 scores. I think it'll be somewhere in the 17 to 24 range.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Not trying to, sound like some intellectual snob or anything, but that is a little bit closer than you was making it out to be. Wes, who have you got in this one? Does Georgia win by 3 scores?
3 scores or 24? I don't know. I think if Texas subs in their second string quarterback in the second half, they might have a shot. But no, Georgia's going to run away with it. I think this is probably the biggest mismatch. As good as Texas has been, I don't think they're back yet. I don't think that they need to be. And Georgia has shown they are in the upper crust of the country. And I think that they've got an all-around complete team, one of the most complete teams outside of Tuscaloosa, and they're going to destroy them.
All right. So I agree now with Wes that this really is a mismatch. This is I think this is the biggest mismatch of the bowl season as far as SEC games go. Yeah, Texas is not going to be able to match the intensity at the line of scrimmage that Georgia brings, and I say that as a team. So Georgia went to LSU and got dominated at the line of scrimmage. Sort of. They really killed us in the run game, but kind of went away from the run game for some reason. I think that scholars 100 years from now will be still searching for the answer to that one. But they competed with Alabama at the line of scrimmage, and I don't know that Texas can handle that. I think it's going to be ugly. So Texas loses by 21-28. I'm agreeing with James. It's going to be an ugly game. Georgia wins this one, wins it. If the play calling is right, if they go away from the run game and just start throwing it like they did at Baton Rouge, then we could see Texas making a surge at the end, but I don't see that happening. Georgia by 21 at least. So now we come to the big one, the Capital One Orange Bowl between Alabama and Oklahoma. James, who you got?
I really think, it's going to be close-ish. I definitely think Alabama comes away with this one just because they've got a solid defense, and it should be enough to slow down OU a little bit. I definitely think OU's offense overpowers Alabama's offense. But again, Alabama's been playing SEC competition all year. OU's been playing Big 12, aka the No Defense Conference. So it's really, I'm not going to say a toss-up as far as who wins. I still think Alabama sticks this one out and probably does it by somewhere around 10 to 17 points. But I'm not positive. It's going to be interesting to see a clash of the different strength style teams and see how the more balanced team does against the offense heavy team.
Right. Wes, who you got?
I don't know. No, it's going to be Bama all the way. I think the defense of Oklahoma is just not going to be able to contain Alabama's quarterback, whether Tua comes back or it's Jalen. I think either one are going to have success. I saw some great improvement from Hurts in the SEC championship game. Some of the passes that he was making, some of the reads and the patience he showed. He's not going to be a one-dimensional quarterback if he's the one that gets in there. And as good as Kyler Murray is, I don't know that he will be able to carry the team, and I think Alabama's defense makes the difference in this one.
All right. I don't see this being a super high-scoring game, despite what people might think. Alabama has a killer offense; they're superb. Oklahoma has a killer offense; they're superb. But Alabama in these types of games is not out to put up points. In these types of games, they're out to control the line of scrimmage, dominate the time of possession, win the game with their defense, and I think that they're more than capable of doing so. I've got Alabama by 17-24. It's going to be an ugly one. It's going to be kind of a boring game to watch. I think that Alabama dominates the game from beginning to end, and the defense is smothering. So much like the games from years past when Alabama has played Michigan State or Washington, they don't dazzle you with anything except for defensive efficiency. So I think that's going to be the difference in this one. Alabama wins, and they win handily. So let's race back through these with JB to get his picks real quick, and then we can move on with the next segment. JB, who have you got real quick? Baylor plays Vanderbilt in the Academy Sports and Outdoors Texas Bowl. Who you got?
I'm picking Baylor in this one. They've got some decent marquee wins on the year. Vandy beat who? Arkansas and Tennessee, the two worst teams in the SEC. All right.
Oh boy, JB's laptop died again.
Did it?
That's what it looks like.
Oh man, this is almost depressing.
Almost.
I'm kind of feeling bad. All right. Well, that being said, maybe he'll be back before the end of the show. But let's continue on with the question segment because I think this is going to be the last thing that we do this evening. I think it's been a wonderful show. I don't know about y'all, but yeah, I'm feeling good. So the next question I believe that we had was a question about yours truly. So the question was, I don't remember who gave it. I don't have it pulled up, but somebody asked which happens first, UCF wins the national championship or Ashton stops hating Clemson. So basically UCF is going to win 100 championships before I stop hating Clemson.
Aren't you going to be dead by then, though? I mean,
that's kind of the point I'm making. There's not going to be a situation where I'll stop hating Clemson. I can't even explain to you why I hate them so much. I just do. They're the worst, and I wish they would just quit, and their program would be suspended, and they would stop. Just end it.
You're just jealous, man.
Yeah, it's jealousy. Whatever. It's not jealousy. I just hate them. See, it could be because
they're the Tigers of Death Valley, and you're jealous that they're the ones playing for championships, and you're not.
No, it could be jealousy with Alabama.
School, and they've got a decent program, and you just don't like them because Tigers Death Valley championships. That's all it is, man.
I don't like them because we lost a bowl game to them a few years ago that we should have won. And
so why aren't you mad at your people for that? I mean, it's not like they paid off the refs, most likely.
It is adorable that you think I'm not mad at my people for that. Anyway, I'm still salty about the 2011 season. You know,
I can't imagine why.
Hey, man, I'm
Oklahoma
still...
State should have beat Iowa State. That's why. Because Oklahoma State screwed LSU out of a national championship. That's why.
Hey, I mean, I'm still salty about the end of the 2011 season as well. I mean, but for different reasons.
Right.
Because of, a little rivalry between a small team in College Station and a small team in Austin, Texas. You know,
a little bitty, inconsequential when they were both in the no defense league. So, I don't know really why I hate Clemson so much. It's not jealousy. I know it's not. I can't stand them. I don't even like their color scheme. Like everything about them angers me. And they play in such a weak conference, and they're always made up to be this great team. And we're forced to watch reruns every year of Alabama and Clemson. It's like, man,
Clemson beat them like 2 years ago.
Yep.
So I mean,
which is
they proved that they had something. They proved that they had something, man. It's not nothing. I mean,
I'm not even saying that the team doesn't deserve those chances. I hate watching Clemson play Alabama. I hate both teams, but I think I hate Clemson more, and I don't know why. Really, it's just a thing. I don't know, but yeah, UCF is going to win championship after championship before I stop hating them. Also, UCF already won a championship. Don't at me. I don't know of any more questions. Do you gentlemen?
No, none that I can think of.
Wes?
I got nothing, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you, man.
Yeah,
I agree.
Great to meet you guys. Great to talk about some college football. Great to watch you two argue back and forth.
Oh man, I love arguing. I love it. At any rate, I would like to go ahead and say I think we all know who our collective coach of the year is. Coach of the year has to be the Kentucky coach, whoever he is. I don't know his name. Stoops.
Yeah, Mark Stoops, as in one of the three Stoops brothers.
Yeah, so we'll say it's the
three Stoopses.
Because I mean, Kentucky was the laughingstock of the SEC, and then now they're in a New Year's Six bowl, which I really don't understand. Well, that's a huge deal, but it is. So, yeah, from the laughingstock of the SEC to play in Penn State, like that's pretty cool. That guy has turned around that program completely. Close runner-up would be either Kirby Smart or who's the guy at A&M now? Fisher. Either Kirby Smart or Jimbo Fisher. But
Really?
yeah, we can all agree there, more or less. And
I'd throw some props at Dan Mullen getting Florida into the top 10.
Oh, I forgot about Dan Mullen.
New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah.
I think we can't forget about him and the complete turnaround in Felipe Franks. I think he has shown just what an offensive genius he is with what he's been able to do in 1 year in Gainesville.
That is fair. So the SEC East is just riddled with coaches who have overachieved and consistently really gone above and beyond what was expected of them. You know, you have the Stoops guy, you have Kirby Smart, who consistently just fields the best team possible. And Dan Mullen, who, yeah, you're right, he's an offensive genius. He just turns programs around. He really is maybe the best quarterback coach alive. He churns out guys like Tim Tebow, Dak Prescott, Cam Newton. I mean, those are all his guys, and they're all –
And Fitzgerald?
Or almost all of them first-round talents. And, yeah, Nick Fitzgerald, who really is not so much to his credit. But, yeah, he coached him too. But yeah, in the SEC East, or in the West, rather, you do have the relative success of Orgeron. It's been kind of a disappointing year, though, so not going to count him. Jimbo Fisher really has revitalized the A&M team, and Nick Saban is just consistently fielding the best team in the country. So, got to give credit where credit is due, regardless of your personal feelings. So that would be our SEC Coaches of the Year. The guys mentioned, save Orgeron, we mentioned him, but he's not in the discussion. But yeah, the rest of our awards will be handed out. We will have an official Coach of the Year next week. Join us next week for our award show. It's going to be a lot of fun. Do we have a guest lined up?
Not that I know of. In fact, I had forgotten that Wes was coming on tonight. Been a little bit bogged down with school and getting ready to move, and thought my computer died. Thankfully, it's just an unreliable motherboard, so it's not dead. I just don't know if it's going to cut out. So
not dead yet.
Yeah. So anyway, do not know. We'll have to talk to JB and Rob and see if we can scrape somebody up or do something special for the end of the year. Also, as a heads up, I may be absent next week because my last finals are on that Thursday, and then I'm moving either that weekend or the coming week, and so got to talk with my roommate. I haven't even secured a bed yet, so I've got some stuff to handle, and I'm going to be pretty busy.
All right. Well, at any rate, it's going to be a fun show. You'll get to see, hopefully, if his computer cooperates. Me and JB finished the argument that we started today. It's going to be an action-packed show next week. We've got a lot to cover, a lot of awards to hand out, a lot of recognition to be given, and props to whoever asked that, Samuel Wallace, for asking that question and really getting us to thinking about that. An award show is such a good idea, and like I say, you got to give credit where credit is due, even if it's Alabama fans. So, if that's all for you gentlemen, that's all I have to say. It's been fun to have you, Wes, even though you were an afterthought to James.
Well, I am a UAB fan.
Well, I hear you. Brothers and sisters in the tavern, brothers and sisters everywhere in the YouTube sphere, and everywhere. We thank you for watching, and always remember, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven, and we will see you in the tavern. God bless.